about diversity and inclusion for non-inclusive spaces, and that means yours. Sorry, a little bit of a wet blanket after all of this conversation. But shocker, I am a woman, and I am a woman of color, and I have big hair. And I'm also in tech, and all of these things I bring with me to work every day and to work at every place I've ever been in. And so my experience is decidedly a bit different than many individuals that exist in this space. In the wake of yet another crisis stemming from the lack of diversity, and conversely, the lack of care being taken with outliers in tech, they being women or minorities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I am also here to talk to you about belonging. My objective is to make you think, and then to make you uncomfortable, and then to spur you into action. Because I think that the best type of action is the one that moves from a place where it actually spurs something, some feeling. And I have a confession to make. I'm really tired of having this conversation, like sincerely. I have been the individual that has had to have the conversation a lot. And as one of one in many of the places where I've been in, I'm always the beginning and sometimes the end of the conversation. Sometimes it feels like asking a Black person. A lot of times I am that Black person. If you're in the room, you're aware that this is an issue. Like you actually have an awareness because you're sitting here and this is nothing new to you. We're all falls too familiar with the dismal stats that speak to the nearly non-existent presence of anyone that is not white and is not male in the tech space. The conversation has become all too commonplace in the spaces that we as HR professionals frequent, and has created a background noise that continues to drown out the real issues and one very seemingly pervasive truth. And I spoke to this earlier. The issue is that it feels better to talk about the problem than it would be to actually fix the issues that create the problem. Save for the inconvenience of bad press, maybe, when tech behaves badly, which seemingly happens all the time. Along with tech leadership acting like the very diversity and inclusionary measures they repeatedly speak to being important as mirrors of our larger society, nothing actually ever happens at all. Nothing at all. To go one step further, the incremental gains in minority headcount that lead to tech organizations being proud of a hire that checks off all of the boxes stand to upend that individual, no matter how well-meaning the players or the company, because they continue to highlight this individual's otherness in ways deemed insignificant by many, but acutely felt by that individual. The majority sees this, your minority sees this. The discussion then needs to fall squarely on what is creating this minefield of sorts for the very candidates that are said to be needed and desired to ensure that the sameness of the past does not continue to be the sameness of the present. Why are spaces non-inclusive is the question that needs to be asked and repeatedly asked. I want to look at a few areas to be aware of and more sensitive to. Everything on this slide has been said to me. I'm going to go one step further and say everything on this slide has been said to anyone who's a minority in tech. Behaviorally, these are called microaggressions, and just to give you a very clear understanding of microaggressions, if you haven't really played in the sandbox for very long, the definition is a racial microaggression is brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignity, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicates hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults towards people of color. These microaggressions are usually tossed offhand, and if you got someone to actually think about the things that they were saying and the underlying thought and meaning behind them, people would be aghast. There's always a conversation about not wanting to offend the other, when in actuality it is continuing to happen. Are these intentional? Probably not. Do people have the awareness? Again, probably not. We need to pay attention, because intention is what we as individuals hope to do. Impact, however, is how we make others feel. And other people get to decide the impact that you have, not you. I want you to keep that. Other people get to decide your impact. Being well-meaning is fine, but you do not get to decide how things land with other people. The second issue here is SKU focus, basically what you need versus how it lands. To place tech's focus on bringing more minorities into the industry without also focusing on the dismal retention rates and advancement opportunities for minorities inherently implies that minorities are unaware of the careers available and further are unprepared to tackle them. That is untrue, and it is extremely offensive. Extremely offensive. It couldn't be further from the truth, and sadly, and unfortunately, nearly every panel, every conference, every diversity and inclusionary program, no matter how well-meaning, works off of this premise. I will say that as a woman of color, I very clearly see the differences when speaking of gender diversity versus racial diversity. When you look at programs that stand to tackle the issues of gender imbalance, they never speak to a thought that a woman is either ill-prepared or unaware of the possibilities within tech, ever, or that women are not adept to progress and advance in spite of the odds. In short, these programs speak to the industry being the issue, not the woman. So why then, when we speak about diversity in the way of racial diversity, does the onus fall squarely on that individual and not on the industry? Why? So now that the landscape of this minefield has been laid out, the question is, how do we go about fixing it? Fix this. Stop waiting for the top to fix a problem they don't see. We can speak to the need for diversity and inclusion until the cows come home because it is more reflective of what the real world looks like, and ultimately, people are not going to play in your sandbox if they don't care. Leadership isn't going to play in your sandbox if they don't care. As HR professionals, we invariably have a heartbeat for our respective cultures, no matter what tech company we work in. We routinely engage in the type of work that allows us to take a calculated and nuanced read of our workforce and our employees, and how and what these employees are thinking and feeling and acting and saying and engaging in. The responsibility is ours to ensure we empower our employees, no matter what level they may be. Your team members may not have formal leadership roles, but make no mistake, they impact your culture a great deal. Begin discussions with all of your employees about their experiences and listen to what they offer as a solution to engagement. Be mindful to also create opportunities for minorities within your organizations to be heard. And then listen. Seriously, listen. The power of your individual employee that often gets overlooked is their ability to praise and to criticize. This is why Glassdoor is equal parts genius and insidious as hell. If you aren't listening, you aren't doing your job. Further, to take it one step further, your managers are mainly responsible for ensuring the day-to-day tasks get handled. And they have more interaction on a daily basis with employees than your leadership ever will. Create engagement with your managers and ensure that they are mindful of and open to the need for diversity, the diversity of thought, the diversity of candidature. I take it one step further, engaging the recruiting agencies that you work with to see if they have D&I initiatives. Take it one step further. Where are they finding this pipeline? How are they finding this pipeline? How are they engaging these individuals that could potentially be at your company? How? Be committed to having conversations that might not be comfortable. It's not supposed to be comfortable. This isn't fun, it's work. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can get to a very positive place if you just do the work and have the conversation. Because they're necessary and because they're actually already happening. Your lack of input very often means the difference between an outlier staying or departing your company. And make no mistake, when they leave, it is not them, it is always you. It is something that you didn't do. It is something your company did or didn't do. It is never them. And when they depart, you allow them the runway to frame the message as to why they left. A lot of times it isn't positive. And my favorite, allies, not apologies. I am an Afro-Latino woman in a white space. I have been an Afro-Latino woman in a white space. I exist and know myself as an Afro-Latino woman in a white space. That is not ever going to change. accountability. Many spaces lack inclusion, but none are as glaring as 10. I am here in this position as the Director of HR and People and Culture and Security Scorecard in spite of, not because of. And I am mindful of that because I am made aware of that every single day. That distinction is an important one. Stop apologizing for how dismal things are and do work on you. Be open to educating yourselves on your blind spots. Please do not create an environment where a minority is responsible for explaining all things Black or Spanish or Muslim or woman or LGBT or vet or is already exhausting to show up to work. To be the spokesperson for every Black person, or every Spanish person, or every Muslim person is not part and parcel of my job description, but it becomes that. And for everything that is holy, please do not ever speak about not seeing color. Oh, please, please don't, please don't. It is offensive, and moreover, it erases the differences that make me, me. Note them, accept them, and allow them to actually exist. Allow me to exist. Allow the outliers that are spoken of as being so